Okay, so you just tried these 10 questions. This was a little bit of a practice before you take the real quiz here shortly. These are 10 questions that will be just like the quiz. The quiz will have 20 questions though instead of just 10. So I'm going to go over this, give you a little video to watch, just kind of going through these questions. And then you can take the real quiz pretty soon. So, number one, they give you a bunch of graphs, and this is one style of problem you'll see, and you probably saw a couple more here on this little practice. On the real quiz, they'll give you a function with a bunch of graphs, and you have to pick which graph represents that function. So, all of these have a parent function graphed. All right, the parent function here is absolute value. All of these have an absolute value parent. These are the black graphs on each of these. They're asking you to graph this new g function, which is the blue one on each of these graphs. So basically, which one has the correct blue graph, which will be this thing right here. All right, well, there's a couple things you need to notice. There's a negative sign in the front. A negative sign means it reflects over the x-axis. So basically, it was v pointing upward. Because of this negative sign right here, the V is now going to be flipped upside down. So it'll look kind of like A. So A could be the answer. I haven't checked anything else, but that's the correct look it should have. B is not right because that's still upright. So B's out. C is downward, so that's good. D is also downward, so that's good. So B's out, but the other three are still fine. I'm going to skip this 2/3 here, and I'm going to come back to that. But inside the absolute value sign, there's a +2, which means it moves left 2. So I'm going to look down here and see which of these blue graphs from here move this direction. So A's not right because A's moving to the right. We want it to move to the left. So A is out, B was already out. C is moving left. It's going down too, but we're only looking at left. And D is going right and up, not left. So by process of elimination and not really doing the whole problem yet, I've already eliminated everything but C. So C is the answer. And if you look up here, it did move down, right? This -2 at the end is the up or down value, and it's a negative, so it's going down. Now let me go back to this 2/3 that I kind of skipped. Remember, if it is less than 1 and greater than 0, it's going to be a shrink. So it's going to vertically shrink it, which is going to kind of squish it. So it's going to get a little bit wider. It's kind of hard to tell on this because 2/3 is not that different than 1, but it is a little bit wider, as you can see here. All right, so C was the answer. Number 2, they give us a function and we're going to apply this. So let's go onto a sheet so I can, x plus 6. And I'm going to take that function and translate it 3 units to the right. So this is the rule that happens. When you go to the right, it's a +3. But in the rule, there's a negative sign. So that's why it ends up being x minus 3. On the right side, I'm going to do the same idea that I did to the left. I took out x and I put in x minus 3. So I'm going to take out x and I'm going to replace it with x minus 3. And now because this is just a parenthesis, and it's really only in a parenthesis because I did substitution, I'm going to combine like terms. So you end up with this function. And of course, they don't want you to name it f again. So this is g of x equals x plus 3, which is b. Number 3, they give you a function and they're asking you what is the graph of the other one. So the function that they provide for you is f of x. That's going to be the black one. So that's your f of x function, the black one up here. They're asking for the equation that matches this function, the blue one. So if you can tell here, the blue and the black lines are parallel, which means they have to have the same slope. So this has to have a negative x, and this has to have a negative x. So it's got to be C or D. A and B are out. And then if you look at this, because it's only a line, this had a y-intercept at 4, which is why it's going through the 4 up here. This one has a y-intercept down here at -3. So that would be C, -3. Okay, number 4 is the same idea as number 2 was. They're going to give me a function, 3x minus 4. And they're asking you to reflect it in the y-axis. So I'm going to reflect it in the y-axis. Well, when I reflect it in the y, it changes my x's. So all of my x values are going to become negative. So over here on the right side, I'm taking out an x and I'm putting in a negative. Taking out this x and I replaced it with a negative x. Not doing anything to that -4. Now because these two are being multiplied together, you just get -3x minus 4. And they don't want you to name it f again, so we're going to give it g. So -3x minus 4, which is c. Number 5, you're going to write a function for the graph that's transformed, reflecting it in the x-axis. So let me take my function, which is 3 minus absolute value of 3x minus 5. Oops. Make sure I did that right. 3 minus, and then 3x minus 5. Good. And I'm reflecting it in the x-axis. So when you flip something over the x-axis, the y values change. So when I do that, that means the f of x changes, because f of x, remember, is y. So I'm negating the whole thing. So I'm going to put a negative sign on all of this. So I can send the minus sign in. That's going to make that -3. And I'm going to send the minus sign to that. Now remember, I cannot put the negatives in here. I can only distribute it to the sign in front. So when I send this negative to this negative, it's actually going to become now a positive absolute value stuff. So -3 plus absolute value of 3x minus 5. D would be the correct answer for number 5. All right, number 6. We have the function 7x plus 5. And they are asking me to horizontally shrink it by a factor of 1/4. All right, when you do it horizontal, it's the reciprocal. So they told me 1/4. But all that means is that I'm actually going to plug in 4, the reciprocal. And when it's horizontal, it goes inside. So this is going to be a 4x. So all I'm doing is taking out x and replacing it with 4x. I'm going to take out this x and plug it in as a 4x. And this gives me 28. And the 5 doesn't get affected. So 28x plus 5. A. Should have gotten A for number 6. All right, number 7. Now we're doing a vertical shrink. Multiplying 4x plus 5 minus 8. 4x plus 5 minus 8, I think. Is that what I said? Yes. All right, now we're going to vertically shrink that by a factor of 1/2. When you vertically shrink, it's going to affect the y-axis. So it's going to affect f of x. So the whole thing is going to be halved because my factor is 1/2. You don't do the reciprocal when it's vertical. So over here, I'm going to 1/2 the whole function. So I'm going to put it all in parentheses so it all gets the half. And now I'm going to distribute. I can send the half to the 4, and I can send the half to the -8. So that would give you a 2x plus 5 in the absolute value, and then halving a -8 is going to give you a -4. And that would be your new function. -4. A. Number 7 should be A. Number 8, they give you an x squared. So each of these, the black is your parent function, black's the parent, black's the parent. So the parent's the same on all of them. And they're asking you to graph this. Now remember, if you have something inside the absolute value or inside the quadratic squared piece, it goes the opposite direction. So because that says +5 in there, you're actually moving it left 5. And the 3 at the end moves it up 3. So I'm looking for the parabola that goes left 5 and up 3. Left 5, up 3. C would be correct. All right, number 9. This is the parent, the black one's the parent, they're all the same. Now we're trying to figure out which of these has the correct G graph, which is this thing. Now remember, this right here, because it's inside and it's being multiplied, that's a horizontal shrink or stretch. But the horizontal always goes in as the reciprocal. So this was actually 1/4 before it was plugged into the equation. So it's 1/4, which means it's a shrink. And when you shrink horizontally, it actually gets skinnier. So your answer here would be C. It didn't move it up at all. All I did was multiply it. So I just shrunk it or stretched it, but it would still be located at the origin. So notice right here in words, it says what I just said. It's a horizontal shrink by 1/4 because you got to do the reciprocal. All right, last one. We're given a function, and then we have like multiple things we're going to do to it. So let's go over here, 3x squared plus 7. All right, I'm going to take that function and I'm going to horizontally shrink it by 1/2 and translate it 2 units up. So a horizontal shrink means I'm doing the reciprocal. So I'm not going to plug in 1/2, I'm going to plug in 2, and it's going to go inside the parenthesis. So it's going to look like this. And then I'm also going up 2 units up. So what that does is it takes the function and it adds 2. So I'm going to take the same thing I got already and just add 2 to the end. And now, because these are just both numbers, I'm going to combine them and make it 9. And then it says you're going to follow it up by reflection in the y-axis. Well, I'm going to flip it over the y-axis. So when I reflect it over the y-axis, it actually makes the x's change. So that's going to become a negative. So over here, instead of it being a 2x, it's going to be a negative 2x. Okay, so this is the answer. But if you go look at the choices, this is not any of the choices. Okay, we're not wrong. This is still the right answer. But because this is being squared, right? When you square something, it makes the stuff inside positive, no matter what. So this is really not doing anything. Okay, and if you think about this, if you think about the picture here, this right here is going to have a y-intercept of 9. So it's going to be up here at 9. And it's going to be, well, this kind of has a couple different things. I don't want to really focus on that. It's going to be a parabola that's upward because it's positive. I won't talk about the shrinks and the stretches, but it looks like this. When I take this same thing and I flip it on the y-axis, because that's what I did right here when I put that negative sign in, if I pick up this u and flip it over and put it back down, it's still going to stay right here in the same spot because this is going right down the middle of your u. So it's just going to lie back on itself. So that's why this doesn't do anything. And the answer is really just a positive 2x. So you get 3, and then a positive 2x, and then plus 9. And that would be A. It does ask you to identify the vertex, but if you see here, all the vertices are the same. And it's just the equations that are different. So I'm just going to answer the equation part, and the vertex is just, it is what it is. It's 0, 9, no matter what. So that correct answer was A. All right, hopefully this clarified a little bit for you. If you need to go back and review anything, if you got time, go for it. Second hour, if you're here first thing this morning, I'd like you to get started at like 8:30. So based on the time, like get going on the quiz so you got enough time to finish. If you're in fourth hour, I'd like you to start at 10 so that you also have enough time. So kind of peek at the time right now, and if it's getting close, make sure you start that up. All right, good luck on the quiz. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys Tuesday.